watch this space. Let's move on to the Greens, because Adam Bandt was elected unopposed as the Greens party leader. Now, that's because Richard Di Natale resigned yesterday, and as I said, I think everyone generally has the view that that was an authentic resignation for family reasons. So he gets elected unopposed. Larissa Waters, Senate leader, and co-deputy leader is Nick McKim. It's all a bit confusing. Interestingly, there's a good tweet here from Troy Bramston. I'll put it up. It grabbed my attention today. He says, absurd that the Greens have 2 deputy leaders in a party room of just 10 MPs, and Nick McKim is the co-deputy leader to Bandt, but is the Senate deputy leader, not the leader. But why is that? The Senate leader is in fact Larissa Waters, but she's also a co-deputy leader. I mean, everyone's got to have a toy and a job down there in the Greens. How do you think he's going to go? He's one of the most radical Greens leaders we've seen in some time. That's saying a lot. But also, he's in the lower house, and the other 9 of his colleagues are in the Senate.
Well, that's problematic. The other thing is that I actually knew Adam Bandt from uni days. He was at Murdoch University, I was at Curtin University in Perth, and he was a student politician. I was a student reporter on a student newspaper, and at that time he was with Socialist Alliance. That shows you how left-wing he is, even though he ended up a lawyer. He's never been even, moderate at all. And in fact, the Labor right people on campus used to hate Adam. They used to think he was just too left-wing. So he's your classic watermelon, I guess, which is a Green who's really sort of a socialist, as opposed to the Bob Brown Green is a red Green. So, but Richard Di Natale was too. Christine Milne and Bob Brown weren't. They were Greens. So he's made a lot about the environment, but we know that he's interested in a lot of other things other than the environment. I think he spoke about the return of manufacturing today. So it is a challenge, and I agree with you on the lower house. The action, and where you have to be nimble and move, is in the Senate. So that's where your vote counts. 2-seat majority aside downstairs. But so it's an unusual break from tradition. People have put to me, by the way, that Bandt wouldn't have been Di Natale's automatic choice, but he's one that he can live with. And there's no doubt he helped him back him into the job.
Yeah, interesting. He was out very quickly today wanting a new green economic deal, very much on the same page, actually, as Malcolm Turnbull, who's been pushing this for some time. It has significant echoes, obviously, of the Democratic race in the US. And we'll get to Iowa. We've got some results tonight that are very interesting. We'll get to that in just a moment. But there were some comments he made to Kieran Gilbert. Again, stuff that's right on the edge. And we'll all remember not so long ago he said that Jim Molan was a war criminal, if you could believe that, of a man who's worn the uniform. But even today he went so far as to basically impugn the PM's character about fires that we know caused significant loss of property and deaths. Let's have a listen to what Adam Bandt said today as leader with Kieran Gilbert.
We've been warned for several decades that unless we get off coal, then we are going to start seeing fire seasons.
But to directly blame the Prime Minister and support for the coal industry for fires,
but he should be able to say,
far too simplistic, isn't it?
He should be able to say with his hand on his heart, I did everything as Prime Minister I possibly could to protect Australian people by making these fires less likely. He did the opposite. He repealed the carbon price, sent Australia's pollution soaring. He voted for that. He's embraced coal. He's overseen record coal exports, and he didn't fund firefighting services properly. Now, he shares some responsibility, and it is time to start holding these leaders to account.
But by making that simplistic attack, don't you dial the emotion up? By saying that you're to blame for the fires because you back coal, how does that emotion help? How does that rhetoric help?
They're Prime Minister and the alternative Prime Minister of our country, and they are meant to tell the Australian people the truth, and they are meant to lead. And they get to read the science. Like, not every Australian gets to read the science. They get to read the science. And what we were told at the last Climate Crisis Summit was that we're not on track to limit global warming to below 2 degrees. Right? We're on track for over 3 degrees.
The bloke's dangerous, devious, and got a lot of rat cunning because he presents Andrew Clennell as though he is providing fact And he's a barrister, so he's got that advocate's style, that cautious, measured style. But in fact, what he's trying to do there is miscue the issue of the fires, not fuel loads, not oxygen, not all the other things, wind that contribute to fires. But Julia Gillard's carbon tax would have stopped all these fires. Changes to Paris agreements would have stopped all these fires.
Yeah.
That's a blatant lie.
Yes, look, he's a clever guy. So whether that works, I don't know. But if Labor in particular can paint him as more radical, they can get some of the Greens' vote. That's what they'll be hoping. They're at 35 primary. You don't win elections with 35 primary. The Greens are at 13. They need to lop off some of that vote. So they'll be hoping that he fails. But he is a clever guy. I guess they could pin the fact, people can pin the fact that he was involved in that carbon tax deal from memory. But
the test for Albo will be, can they make him seen to be what he is? You're right, a socialist more than he is a Green. And if he is seen as that, will it move votes back to Labor? We'll see, because they've long held that Labor vote at about 10% away from the other major party, and that's a challenge for the Labor Party. Just before we go, Royal Commission, we heard a little bit more from the Prime Minister today. Andrew, what can you tell us?
Yes, yeah, oh, sorry, that's your question. Yeah, we did. I mean, look, I discovered a bit. He said, I'm appointing the former Chief of the Defence Force, Mark Binskens. He was Chief from 2014 to 2018, so not a judge, a former pilot, in fact, head of the Air Force, and this seems deliberately about making sure, I guess, defence are better represented in natural disasters. You'd have to assume that. We've discovered the terms of reference will look at hazard reduction, Commonwealth state responsibilities, which is about that issue of defence coming in, resilience and building better infrastructure, making sure that what's rebuilt sort of works. And of course, he said it'll be over before the bushfire season. I think I very much get the signals, despite some earlier commentary to the opposite effect, that the states will support this and this will go ahead, no problem. A little bit of climate change in there, but mostly more about hazard reduction, getting defence in where it's needed. You almost don't need an inquiry for it, Peter, in a way, because it's going to come the outcome Scott Morrison wants. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah, but I do think that the choice of Binskin is a smart move, because the issue that really came out, it was national coordination, rollout of the ADF, call-out powers more broadly, and the risk of duplication, I think, in some of the resourcing issues that the Prime Minister alluded to. So smart move, and I've worked before with Mark Binskin when I worked in the Prime Minister's office. Terrific bloke. I think he'll do a good job. Andrew Clennell, thanks very much for your time.